I still remember the exact moment Marcus Whitfield called me into his office and shattered my career in the most unexpected way. "Callie, I need to discuss something important with you," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his mahogany desk. "I thought maybe I was getting promoted after 5 years of exceeding every target." Instead, he smiled that uncomfortable smile people use when they're about to ruin your day. "My daughter Madison is joining our team as creative director, and she really needs your corner office space for her projects." My heart stopped, but I kept smiling. "Of course, Marcus. I'd be happy to work from home temporarily while we figure out arrangements." His relief was palpable. The next morning arrived gray and drizzly, matching my mood as I drove to Whitfield Pharmaceutical Marketing for what I didn't yet know would be one of my final times. I had spent the entire night staring at my bedroom ceiling, processing Marcus' announcement, and trying to convince myself this was just a temporary inconvenience. After all, I had been the top-performing senior marketing director for 3 consecutive years. My client retention rate was 94%, and I had brought in over $2 million in new business during the past 18 months alone. I packed my personal belongings methodically, starting with the framed photo of my parents at my college graduation, then my collection of industry awards, and finally, the small, succulent plant my team had given me last Christmas. Each item felt heavier than it should have, weighted with 5 years of memories and professional growth. Madison bounced around my soon-to-be former office like an excited golden retriever, measuring windows for what she enthusiastically called inspiration curtains, and discussing her grand plans to install a mini refrigerator shaped like a cactus. "This space has such amazing energy," Madison gushed, spinning in a circle with her arms outstretched. "I can already feel the creative vibes flowing. Oh, and I'm thinking of getting one of those hanging egg chairs for brainstorming sessions. Daddy says budget isn't an issue since I'm bringing such valuable fresh perspectives to the company." I maintained my professional composure, even offering to help her understand our client base and company procedures. "Would you like me to prepare some briefing materials about our current accounts? We work with some very specialized pharmaceutical clients who have specific regulatory requirements." "Oh, I don't really need to learn the old way of doing things," Madison chirped, examining my diplomas before casually placing them in a cardboard box labeled "Previous Occupant Items" in her bubbly handwriting. "Daddy says I'm here to bring fresh energy and modernize everything. I have so many ideas about making this place less corporate and more authentic. Like, why do we need all these boring charts and graphs when we could just create vision boards and mood rings?" I discovered that Madison had graduated just 6 months earlier with a bachelor's degree in art therapy from a small liberal arts college nestled in the mountains of Vermont. Her resume, which I glimpsed on Marcus' desk during our transition meeting, listed her work experience as Instagram influencer with 8,000 followers, freelance vision board consultant with 3 total clients, and sustainable lifestyle blogger with a website that had been inactive for 2 years. She had never held a traditional job, managed a budget larger than her monthly allowance, or worked with corporate clients who expected measurable results and professional accountability. The most troubling discovery was learning that Marcus had created the creative director position specifically for Madison, complete with a salary that exceeded what most of our mid-level managers earned after years of proven performance. He had also promised her a company credit card, flexible scheduling, and the authority to reimagine our brand identity from the ground up without any oversight or approval process. From my newly established home office in my spare bedroom, I continued managing my extensive portfolio of pharmaceutical marketing accounts with the same dedication I had always shown. My daily schedule remained packed with client strategy calls, vendor coordination meetings, and project deadline management. I coordinated 3 major drug safety campaigns for clients launching new medications, supervised a team of 8 junior marketers who now reported to me exclusively through video conferences, and maintained critical relationships with vendors across the country who handled everything from graphic design to media placement. During our weekly team video conferences, I watched in growing horror as Madison systematically transformed my former office into something resembling a trendy coffee shop crossed with a meditation studio, designed by someone who had never actually worked in either environment. She installed purple LED strip lighting along the entire ceiling perimeter, replaced my ergonomic desk chair with a giant pink beanbag that cost more than most people's monthly car payments, and hung motivational posters featuring phrases like, "Disrupt your reality," "Authenticity is the new black," and "Corporate vibes are dead vibes." I'm totally revolutionizing our brand identity, Madison announced during one particularly cringeworthy team meeting, gesturing enthusiastically at her latest addition, a neon sign reading "Good Vibes" only mounted directly above the spot where my industry certifications used to hang. Like, why do we need all these boring reports and spreadsheets when we could just create vision boards and mood rings? I think our clients would respond so much better to more emotional, intuitive communication styles that really speak to their hearts instead of just their brains. I muted my microphone to prevent anyone from hearing my sharp intake of breath. Our clients were serious pharmaceutical companies requiring detailed regulatory compliance reports, comprehensive market analysis data, and precise messaging for life-saving medications that had undergone years of clinical trials and FDA review processes. The idea of replacing clinical trial summaries with vision boards made my stomach turn and my professional reputation flash before my eyes. Marcus nodded encouragingly at his daughter's increasingly outlandish suggestions, while I systematically documented every ridiculous proposal in my growing collection of personal files. I began backing up all my client contact information, detailed project histories, vendor agreements, and regulatory compliance documentation to my personal cloud storage accounts. Something deep in my gut told me I would need this information much sooner than anyone expected, and my instincts had never steered me wrong in my professional life. 3 weeks into my remote work arrangement, I began noticing subtle but deeply troubling changes in communication patterns that made my blood run cold and my professional alarm bells ring at maximum volume. Meeting invitations that used to include me automatically began arriving in my inbox without my name on the attendee list. Email threads discussing my ongoing projects, some of which I had been developing for months, suddenly excluded me from the conversation chain entirely. Madison started sending company-wide updates about her projects, describing marketing campaigns I had conceived, researched, and developed through countless hours of careful planning and client consultation. She wrote eloquently about the Morrison Pharmaceutical rebranding initiative, as if she had created the entire strategy from scratch, mentioning my contributions only in passing as helpful input from our remote team member, rather than acknowledging that I had spent 4 months developing the comprehensive approach she was now claiming as her own brainchild. The situation escalated during what was supposed to be my monthly strategy review with Marcus, a meeting I had attended religiously for 3 years to discuss performance metrics, upcoming challenges, and strategic planning initiatives. Madison sat in the corner of his office throughout our entire video call, supposedly taking notes but clearly listening to every confidential detail about client relationships, financial projections, and competitive analysis that should have remained strictly between Marcus and senior management. When I presented my quarterly results showing a 23% increase in client retention, 15 new account acquisitions worth over $800,000 in annual revenue, and a customer satisfaction rating of 96%, Madison interrupted repeatedly with pointed questions about whether remote employees could really understand company culture and maintain the kind of client relationships that drove long-term success. I mean, it's probably so much harder to stay really connected when you're not physically present in the office environment, she said, twirling her perfectly highlighted hair around her manicured finger while maintaining an expression of fake concern. Maybe some of these successes happened because of the amazing team energy here in the office, you know? Like, collaboration is definitely so much better when everyone's in the same physical space sharing ideas and creating together. Her implications were crystal clear, and Marcus seemed to be absorbing every word with the kind of serious consideration that made my chest tighten with anxiety. She was systematically planting seeds of doubt about my value and contribution, while positioning herself as the irreplaceable office presence that made everything possible. The following week brought an incident that changed everything between us permanently. I accidentally joined a scheduled Zoom call 5 minutes early, a habit I had developed to ensure technical issues didn't delay important meetings. My camera and microphone were muted while I organized materials, but I could hear Madison talking to Marcus about what she euphemistically called restructuring opportunities, with the casual tone someone might use to discuss weekend lunch plans. "Callie seems kind of disconnected lately, don't you think?" Madison said, her voice carrying that particular mixture of fake sympathy and calculated manipulation that makes your skin crawl. "And honestly, I think some of our clients would really benefit from working with someone who truly understands the modern marketplace. Someone who gets how to communicate with younger demographics and isn't stuck in old-school thinking that probably worked 10 years ago but doesn't really connect with today's consumers." I sat frozen at my desk, listening as Marcus considered his daughter's carefully crafted suggestions with the kind of serious attention he had once reserved for my strategic recommendations. He mentioned growing concerns about team cohesion and wondered aloud whether remote work arrangements were sustainable for senior leadership positions in a company that prided itself on collaborative innovation and client relationship building. Maybe we should consider transitioning some of these responsibilities to team members who are more integrated into our daily operations. Marcus mused, apparently forgetting that I had built most of those client relationships from scratch and maintained them through 5 years of consistent, exceptional service. That evening, I sat in my home office, surrounded by the awards and certifications that represented years of hard work and professional achievement, finally understanding that Madison wasn't just incompetent or naive. She was actively, deliberately working to push me out of the company to secure her own position and eliminate any potential threat to her authority or credibility. This wasn't about office space or company culture. This was about power, control, and a spoiled young woman who had never earned anything in her life deciding that my career was an obstacle to her convenience. I spent the next 6 hours creating a comprehensive backup plan that would protect my professional interests regardless of what happened next. I copied every client file, contract, vendor agreement, and project document to multiple secure locations, accessible only to me. I also started researching business licensing requirements for independent marketing consultants in my state, investigating liability insurance options, and calculating the financial requirements for establishing my own practice. Madison's first major disaster struck during the 4th week of my exile, arriving like a corporate tornado that left destruction in its wake and revealed the true depth of her incompetence to everyone involved. She had decided to handle the Morrison Pharmaceutical account personally, despite having zero experience with pharmaceutical marketing regulations, absolutely no understanding of the client's complex history with our firm, and a complete lack of knowledge about the intricate FDA compliance requirements that governed every aspect of our relationship with them. Morrison Pharmaceutical represented 37% of our annual revenue and required the kind of careful attention to detail that came from years of experience navigating the treacherous waters of medical marketing. Regulations. Dr. Patricia Kellerman, their chief executive officer, was a former FDA administrator known throughout the industry for her exacting standards, conservative approach to marketing communications, and absolute intolerance for anything that could be interpreted as frivolous or unprofessional when discussing serious medical treatments. I learned about Madison's involvement when she sent me what she described as a quick email asking for background info about Morrison. She wanted to create what she enthusiastically called a more engaging presentation style for their upcoming drug safety campaign, which involved communicating potential side effects for a new arthritis medication to both healthcare providers and patients. Against my better judgment, which was screaming warnings like a fire alarm, I provided a detailed briefing document explaining Morrison's conservative corporate culture, their strict regulatory requirements, and their well-documented preference for data-driven presentations that prioritized accuracy and compliance over creativity. Madison apparently interpreted engaging as an opportunity to create a presentation that would have been inappropriate for a children's birthday party, let alone a serious pharmaceutical marketing meeting. She spent 3 days designing what she proudly called an innovative approach to side effect communication, featuring cartoon mascots representing different adverse reactions. She created animated characters with names like Nausea Nancy, a green-faced figure wearing a sailor outfit, Dizzy Dan, a character with spinning eyes and wobbly legs, and Sleepy Sue, a cartoon woman perpetually yawning while surrounded by floating sheep. The presentation included social media memes, bright rainbow graphics that hurt your eyes to look at, and a section titled, "Side Effects Can Be Your Sidekicks," that suggested patients could develop positive relationships with medication reactions through mindful acceptance and creative reframing. She had somehow managed to turn a serious medical safety discussion into something that resembled a collaboration between a preschool art class and a very confused motivational speaker. The catastrophe occurred on a Thursday afternoon when Madison intended to send her cartoon masterpiece to Marcus for review before the critical Friday morning client presentation. Instead, in a moment of technological incompetence that perfectly matched her professional incompetence, she accidentally sent the presentation directly to Morrison's entire executive team, including Dr. Kellerman, their chief medical officer, their head of regulatory affairs, and their director of risk management. My phone rang within 2 hours, and Marcus' voice was so strained it sounded like someone had taken his vocal cords and stretched them on a medieval torture device. "Callie, I need your help desperately. Doctor Kellerman called me personally, and she's threatening to terminate our contract immediately with cause. She said Madison's presentation was the most unprofessional communication she's ever received from a marketing firm in 30 years of industry experience. She used words like insulting, dangerous, and potentially actionable when describing how we characterized serious medication side effects. Her exact words were that we had trivialized medical safety in a manner that could endanger patient welfare and regulatory compliance." I took a long, deep breath before responding, using every ounce of my professional training to keep my voice calm and measured. "That sounds like an extremely serious situation, Marcus. What exactly would you like me to do to help resolve this crisis? Can you fix this somehow? Can you call Dr. Kellerman personally and explain that this was some kind of terrible mistake? Morrison is our biggest client by far, and if we lose them, the company might not survive financially. I'm talking about layoffs, office closures, everything we've built over the past decade completely destroyed because of one presentation. I agreed to review the situation carefully and see what I might be able to do. But I deliberately didn't promise anything specific or commit to any particular course of action. After hanging up, I immediately accessed Madison's presentation through our shared company server, and what I saw made me feel genuinely shocked by its spectacular inappropriateness. She had managed to turn a discussion of serious medical side effects that could impact patient health into something that resembled a children's cartoon show designed by someone who had never met an actual child. That evening, Madison called me directly for the first time since this entire nightmare began, and her voice was tight, with barely controlled panic, mixed with the kind of indignant entitlement that comes from never facing real consequences for your actions. "This whole thing is totally unfair and completely blown out of proportion," she said, her words tumbling over each other in her haste to deflect responsibility. "Like, I was just trying to make medical information more accessible and human-centered instead of boring and technical. Dr. Kellerman is probably just too old-fashioned to appreciate innovative communication strategies that actually connect with people emotionally. Can you talk to her and explain that this is how modern marketing really works in the 21st century?" I realized with crystal clarity that Madison genuinely believed her approach was not only appropriate, but superior to traditional pharmaceutical marketing methods. She had absolutely no understanding of regulatory requirements, corporate professionalism, or the literal life and death gravity of medication safety communications. More troubling, she seemed to expect me to clean up her mess, while she continued to take credit for any successful recovery, positioning herself as a misunderstood innovator whose brilliance was simply ahead of its time. While reviewing client contracts late into the night to assess the full scope of the Morrison situation, I made a discovery that changed my understanding of my position so completely that I had to read certain passages 3 times to believe what I was seeing. Most of our major accounts, including contracts I had negotiated personally over the past 5 years, included personal service clauses specifically naming me as the required account manager and primary point of contact for all strategic communications. These clauses had been added gradually over the years as clients developed confidence in my work and wanted to ensure continuity of service that protected their interests and marketing investments. Morrison's contract, which I had renegotiated just 8 months earlier during their latest expansion phase, stated explicitly that any change in account management personnel required 60 days written notice and formal client approval. If the designated account manager left the company for any reason, Morrison could terminate their contract immediately without penalty and without paying any outstanding balances for work in progress. Similar clauses existed in contracts with Bridgewater Pharmaceuticals, our second largest client, worth over $400,000 annually. Coastal Medical Research, whose seasonal campaigns generated nearly $300,000 in revenue. Pinnacle Health Systems, whose complex regulatory requirements had taken me 2 years to master. And 6 other major accounts representing a combined annual value of over $1.8 million. As I dug deeper into our operational structure, I made an even more significant discovery that revealed the true extent of my integral role in company operations. I was the only current employee with administrative access to our customer relationship management software, our project management platforms, our financial tracking systems, and our vendor payment portals. Over the course of 5 years, I had gradually become the person who maintained all critical passwords, system access codes, and security protocols because Marcus trusted me completely with these responsibilities, never imagining a scenario where that access might become leverage in a conflict situation. Additionally, every major vendor relationship had been established under my name and direct contact information. Our graphic design team, web development contractor, media buying agency, specialized research consultants, and regulatory compliance advisors all considered me their primary point of contact and had developed working relationships based on my specific communication style and project management approach. If I suddenly left the company, transitioning these critical relationships would require weeks of coordination, detailed briefings, and potential service interruptions that could damage client projects and company operations. The weekend brought a series of increasingly desperate phone calls from Marcus, each conversation more frantic than the last, as the full scope of the crisis became apparent. Morrison had given us exactly 72 hours to provide a satisfactory explanation and comprehensive recovery plan, or they would begin the process of transitioning their account to Bradley Marketing Associates, our primary competitor, who had been courting Morrison for years, waiting for exactly this kind of opportunity. 2 other clients had somehow learned about the Morrison situation through industry networks and were asking pointed questions about our new creative direction and whether similar approaches might affect their own campaigns. Bridgewater's project manager had left a voicemail asking whether our company was moving away from traditional pharmaceutical marketing toward more experimental approaches and requesting a meeting to discuss our ongoing relationship and future direction. Callie, I'm prepared to offer you a 15% salary increase and an immediate promotion to Senior Vice President of Client Relations, Marcus said during Sunday evening's call, his voice hoarse from stress and exhaustion. We need you back in the office immediately to manage this crisis personally. Madison realizes she might have moved too quickly with some of her innovative ideas, and she's willing to collaborate more closely with experienced team members going forward. I thanked him sincerely for the generous offer and assured him that I understood the urgency of the situation. But I explained that I needed adequate time to consider my options and evaluate how I could best serve the company's interests moving forward. I was being completely honest in my response, though probably not in the way Marcus expected or hoped. I was indeed carefully considering all my options, including several possibilities that didn't involve returning to the office or remaining as a company employee at all. On Monday morning, I received a formal email from Dr. Kellerman's executive assistant requesting a personal phone call to discuss Morrison Pharmaceuticals' account management needs and future service requirements. Before returning that call, I spent 3 hours researching independent consulting firm regulations, business licensing requirements, professional liability insurance options, and the financial projections for establishing a specialized pharmaceutical marketing practice. I called Dr. Kellerman Tuesday morning at exactly 9 o'clock, and our conversation exceeded my most optimistic expectations while simultaneously confirming my worst fears about the damage Madison had caused to our professional relationships. Dr. Kellerman was indeed frustrated and deeply concerned about the unprofessional presentation, but her primary worry centered on ensuring consistent, high-quality service for Morrison's ongoing projects, rather than simply punishing our company for one catastrophic mistake. "Callie, you've managed our account with exceptional skill and professionalism for 3 years," Dr. Kellerman said, her voice carrying the kind of respect that takes years to earn in the pharmaceutical industry. "We've recommended your firm to colleagues specifically because of your expertise, regulatory knowledge, and unwavering commitment to compliance standards. However, if the company's direction is changing toward the kind of approach we witnessed last week, we need to seriously explore alternative arrangements that protect our interests and reputation." I explained the situation honestly and thoroughly, describing the recent management transition, my current remote work arrangement, and the challenges created by Madison's lack of industry experience and regulatory understanding. Dr. Kellerman listened carefully to every detail before making a proposal that took my breath away and changed the trajectory of my entire career. "Would you be interested in managing Morrison's marketing needs through an independent consulting arrangement? We'd much prefer to continue working with you directly, rather than invest time and resources finding a completely new firm and starting over with relationship building and knowledge transfer." Over the following week, I had remarkably similar conversations with representatives from 4 other major clients, each expressing growing frustration with recent changes in communication quality, project management consistency, and overall service standards. Bridgewater Pharmaceuticals Marketing Director Janet Rodriguez mentioned receiving strange emails with emoji characters and casual language that made our legal team nervous about compliance implications. She specifically referenced a message from Madison suggesting they totally rethink their FDA-approved messaging strategy to include more authentic, heart-centered language that really vibes with patient experiences. Coastal Medical Research Project Manager Robert Chen complained about missed deadlines, incomplete reports, and what he diplomatically described as concerning gaps in regulatory knowledge that could expose our organization to unnecessary risks. He had received a proposal from Madison to replace their standard clinical trial summaries with more engaging patient journey maps featuring emotional storytelling elements and visual metaphors. Pinnacle Health Systems Director of Marketing Communications, Sarah Walsh, expressed concerns about fundamental misunderstandings of pharmaceutical marketing requirements after Madison had suggested incorporating mindfulness practices and holistic wellness concepts into campaigns for prescription medications, treating serious mental health conditions. I spent the following weekend establishing Callie Mitchell Marketing Solutions as an independent consulting firm, handling all necessary licensing requirements, business registration procedures, professional liability insurance applications, and financial account setup processes. My home office already contained everything necessary to serve clients professionally and efficiently, including high-speed fiber internet connections, professional video conferencing equipment, secure file storage systems, and dedicated phone lines for client communications. The transition felt simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating, like standing at the edge of a cliff knowing you had to jump, but finally feeling confident about your ability to fly. I was leaving behind the security and predictability of steady employment, but I was also escaping a toxic situation that was destroying my professional satisfaction and threatening my reputation within the industry I loved. When Marcus discovered Monday morning that Morrison Pharmaceutical had formally terminated their contract to begin working with me independently, his initial reaction was to call in a state of near panic that quickly escalated to anger and accusations of betrayal. "This is nothing short of corporate sabotage, Callie. You can't just steal our clients because you're upset about a temporary office arrangement and some personality conflicts with Madison. I'll have our lawyers review your employment contract thoroughly for non-compete violations and am prepared to pursue legal action to protect the company's interests and client relationships." I remained completely calm during his tirade, drawing on years of experience managing difficult client conversations and tense negotiation sessions. I explained that I had thoroughly reviewed my employment agreement with our company attorney and confirmed that there was no non-compete clause restricting my ability to work independently with former clients. More importantly, the personal service clauses in most client contracts explicitly gave them the right to choose their preferred service provider and maintain relationships with specific individuals rather than being bound to particular companies. "Marcus, I want to be absolutely clear that I haven't solicited anyone inappropriately or made any negative comments about the company," I said, maintaining the same professional tone I had used in thousands of client conversations. These clients contacted me directly because they were genuinely concerned about their projects and the quality of service they were receiving. I simply offered to continue providing the same level of expertise and attention they've always received from me personally. By Friday, 3 more clients had chosen to transition their accounts to my independent firm after receiving what they described as unacceptable communications from Madison and experiencing significant delays in project deliverables. Madison spent the entire week alternating between angry phone calls demanding I give back the clients who belonged to the company and tearful conversations with her father about how unfairly everyone was treating her innovative ideas and creative vision. Saturday morning brought an unexpected and unwelcome surprise when Marcus appeared at my front door at 8:30. Uninvited and unannounced, his face flushed red with anger and exhaustion that spoke to sleepless nights and mounting desperation. He demanded that I return all client files immediately, threatened legal action if I continued interfering with legitimate company business, and accused me of engaging in unethical practices designed to destroy the company he had spent 20 years building. I invited him inside despite his aggressive tone and offered coffee, maintaining my professional composure even as he paced around my living room like a caged animal. I understood that his anger came from fear and desperation rather than genuine malice, but I also knew that this confrontation would determine how our professional relationship resolved and whether we could find any path forward that preserved mutual respect. In my living room, surrounded by the comfortable furniture and personal touches that made my house a home, I presented Marcus with a comprehensive documentation file I had prepared specifically for this moment. The folder contained detailed records of Madison's failures, copies of client complaints and concerns, email transcripts showing her inappropriate communications, and a complete timeline of events leading to each account termination. Madison told me she had extensive marketing experience and solid business training, Marcus said, his voice growing quieter as he reviewed the evidence with mounting dismay. She assured me that her college program included comprehensive business marketing courses and that she had gained practical experience through internships and independent projects. I showed him Madison's actual resume, which I had photographed during my first week of remote work when it was still sitting openly on his desk. Her art therapy degree from Green Mountain College included only one business-related course called Creative Economics for Artists, which focused on pricing handmade crafts and organizing small-scale art shows. Her internship experience consisted of exactly 3 months helping a local yoga studio design promotional flyers and maintain their Instagram account, work that involved no client interaction, budget management, or professional accountability. More damaging was the extensive portfolio of client communications I had systematically compiled over the previous month. Madison's emails to pharmaceutical executives included casual language like, "Hey there and hope you're having an awesome day," inappropriate emoji usage that violated professional communication standards, and suggestions that clients totally rethink FDA-approved messaging strategies to include approaches that could expose them to regulatory violations and legal liability. One particularly egregious example was an email to Pinnacle Health Systems suggesting they consider more mindful approaches to medication marketing that incorporated crystals, aromatherapy references, and what she called ancient healing wisdom into campaigns for prescription antidepressants and anxiety medications. She deliberately lied about her qualifications and experience, Marcus said quietly, the anger draining from his voice as understanding and disappointment took its place. And I never bothered to verify any of her claims because I wanted so desperately to believe she was ready for this level of responsibility. I wanted to give her opportunities I never had at her age. Our serious conversation was abruptly interrupted by Madison's dramatic arrival. She had apparently been shopping at the local mall and returned home to find her father's luxury sedan parked in my modest driveway. She stormed into my living room carrying multiple shopping bags from expensive stores, immediately launching into accusations about betrayal, corporate conspiracy, and jealousy of her innovative vision. "This is so completely unfair, Daddy," she said, her voice rising to a pitch that made my windows vibrate. "Callie is just totally jealous because my ideas are more creative and forward-thinking than her boring old-school approach that probably worked okay like 10 years ago but doesn't really connect with modern consumers. The clients don't understand true innovation, and Callie is encouraging them to stay stuck in the past instead of embracing the future of marketing." Marcus looked at his daughter with an expression I had never seen before, and I realized I was witnessing a moment of profound parental recognition that was probably 22 years overdue. His face showed disappointment mixed with heartbreak, but also a kind of clarity that suggested he was finally seeing Madison as she really was, rather than as he had always hoped she might become. "Madison, you specifically told me you had marketing experience and comprehensive business training," Marcus said, his voice heavy with the weight of accumulated disappointment. "You assured me you understood pharmaceutical industry requirements and regulatory compliance standards. I mean, I totally understand creativity and authentic communication, which is way more important than boring technical stuff that literally anyone can learn from books or whatever," Madison replied defensively, apparently unaware that she was confirming every criticism he had heard. "Besides, I thought you wanted me to bring fresh energy to the company and shake things up, not just copy what everyone else was already doing like some kind of robot." The confrontation escalated dramatically when Marcus showed Madison the complete collection of client feedback and carefully explained the devastating financial impact of losing 7 major accounts, representing over 60% of the side of this company's annual revenue. Madison's response was to blame literally everyone except herself, while suggesting that the clients were too rigid, not ready for progressive marketing approaches, and probably intimidated by working with someone who really understands modern consumer psychology. Her complete inability to accept responsibility or acknowledge the consequences of her actions seemed to break something fundamental in Marcus' perception of his daughter and his role as her father. For the first time in her life, she was facing real consequences that couldn't be fixed with apologies, excuses, or daddy's money and influence. That evening, Marcus called to offer a formal apology for his daughter's behavior, for the impossible position he had put me in, and for allowing his parental love to cloud his business judgment so completely that he nearly destroyed the company he had dedicated his life to building. 6 months later, my independent consulting firm was thriving beyond my wildest professional dreams and exceeding every optimistic projection I had included in my business plan. Callie Mitchell Marketing Solutions had grown from serving 8 former clients to managing 15 major pharmaceutical accounts, including 3 new clients who had sought me out specifically because of my reputation for regulatory expertise and exceptional customer service. I had hired 3 talented employees who brought diverse skills and perspectives to our growing team. Jennifer Martinez joined as a senior account manager after leaving Marcus' company when Madison made her work environment unbearable with constant criticism and micromanagement. David Park came to us from a larger firm where he felt undervalued and underutilized, bringing expertise in digital marketing and social media compliance that perfectly complemented our traditional strengths. Sarah Williams, a recent graduate with a pharmacy background, added crucial regulatory knowledge that enhanced our ability to serve clients with complex compliance requirements. My home office had undergone a complete transformation, expanding from my spare bedroom into a dedicated business suite that occupied half of my house's ground floor. I had installed professional meeting spaces with state-of-the-art video conferencing equipment, created a dedicated server room for secure data storage, and established comfortable workstations for my employees, who often collaborated on complex projects requiring concentrated focus and frequent communication. Monthly revenue now exceeded what I had earned annually as a senior employee, and client satisfaction ratings consistently reached 98% according to our quarterly surveys. More importantly, I woke up every morning excited about my work, energized by the challenges ahead, and proud of the business I was building through hard work, ethical practices, and genuine commitment to client success. Marcus' company survived the crisis, but barely, and only after implementing dramatic changes that fundamentally altered its structure and operations. After losing nearly 60% of their revenue when major clients departed, he was forced to lay off half his staff, move to a smaller office building in a less prestigious location, and return to handling day-to-day operations personally, rather than delegating responsibilities to managers who had never earned their positions. The downsizing process was painful but necessary, and it ultimately revealed which employees were genuinely committed to the company's success versus those who had been coasting on the comfortable assumptions that come with stable employment in a growing business. Several talented junior employees chose to stay and help rebuild, accepting temporary salary reductions in exchange for greater responsibility and opportunities for advancement based on merit rather than connections. Madison lasted exactly 6 weeks after our confrontational weekend, before admitting she hated the corporate environment and found the work too stressful and demanding for her creative personality. She announced that she wanted to pursue more authentic creative opportunities that aligned with her artistic vision and spiritual values, which apparently meant moving back into her father's house and spending her days creating vision boards for her personal Instagram account. The most surprising and encouraging development was Madison's gradual personal transformation over the following months. After leaving the company in dramatic fashion, complete with accusations that everyone else was too closed-minded to appreciate innovative thinking, she eventually enrolled in a business management program at the local community college. Her decision to pursue education came after several months of unsuccessful attempts to launch her own consulting business that consisted mainly of offering to create vision boards and provide life coaching to friends and acquaintances. Reality finally penetrated her bubble of entitlement when she realized that genuine professional success required actual knowledge, skills, and work ethic, rather than just enthusiasm and creative ideas. She started working part-time at a small marketing agency downtown, beginning with basic administrative tasks like filing, data entry, and appointment scheduling. Slowly, carefully, and with considerable oversight, she began learning fundamental business skills that she should have acquired years earlier through normal professional development, rather than expecting executive-level responsibilities without any foundation of knowledge or experience. 3 months ago, Madison called to apologize personally for her behavior and attitude during the crisis period. Her voice carried a maturity and self-awareness that I had never heard before, suggesting that facing real consequences had finally forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself and her approach to life and work. I thought business was just about having good ideas and being creative, she said, her words coming slowly, as if she were still processing these realizations herself. I didn't understand that other people's livelihoods and careers depended on doing things correctly and professionally. I'm sorry it took me so long to grow up and start taking responsibility for my actions and their effects on other people. Marcus and I now maintain a cordial professional relationship that benefits both our organizations while respecting appropriate boundaries and maintaining mutual respect. He occasionally contracts my firm for specialized projects that require expertise his current staff lacks, particularly complex regulatory consulting and crisis communication management, where my experience and industry relationships provide value that justifies our premium pricing. During our quarterly business meetings, which always take place in my professional conference room rather than his office, Marcus has mentioned feeling genuinely grateful that the crisis forced him to recognize his mistakes and rebuild the company on more solid foundations. He learned painful but valuable lessons about the difference between helping your children and enabling their worst tendencies, and about the importance of separating family relationships from business decisions that affect other people's careers and financial security. The greatest lesson I learned from this entire experience was discovering my own true value and capabilities in ways I never could have achieved while working within the comfortable constraints of someone else's organizational structure. Being pushed out of my comfort zone revealed strengths, skills, and leadership abilities I hadn't fully recognized or developed while focusing primarily on being a valuable employee rather than an independent professional capable of building something significant. The betrayal and unfair treatment that initially felt devastating and personally crushing became the catalyst for achieving professional independence, financial security, and personal fulfillment that I never knew was possible. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us create opportunities for the best changes in our lives, though we can only see this clearly in retrospect after we've navigated through the crisis and emerged stronger on the other side. Marcus giving my office to Madison felt like punishment and rejection at the time, but it actually freed me to build something much better than I could have achieved by staying comfortable in a subordinate position where my growth was limited by other people's expectations and organizational constraints. The corner office I lost seems completely insignificant now compared to the professional freedom, financial independence, and daily satisfaction I gained by being forced to leave it behind and create my own path forward. Today, I wake up every morning genuinely excited about my work, proud of the ethical business I've built through integrity and expertise, and grateful for the clients who trusted me enough to take a chance on an independent consultant when they could have chosen larger, more established firms with greater resources and longer track records. What would you do if someone tried to push you out of your position through nepotism and office politics? Would you fight to stay in a toxic environment? Or would you use it as motivation to build something better and more fulfilling? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if this story inspired you to think differently about workplace challenges and personal empowerment, please give it a thumbs up to help others find this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about turning betrayal into triumph and discovering your true professional potential. And please share this with anyone who needs motivation to stand up for their worth and take control of their career destiny. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes losing what we think we want leads us to discover what we actually need to create the life and career we truly deserve.